At the beginning of the 21st century, we've lost the majority of the World War II generation, dubbed the Greatest Generation. These people lived through the Depression. To the generation of kids born in the 80s and 90s, the Greatest Generation were the grandparents at nursing homes or vets waving from small-town parade floats. But to the baby boomers, this was the generation that raised them. They were their teachers and parents. They were the generation with first-hand accounts of the country going through the Great Depression and World War II, some even World War I. The boomer children looked up to this generation. They were their heroes and mentors. They passed on traditional family practices from their parents that stretched back into the 1800s. As this generation passed on, the baby boomers are now left as the elders. Everyone in the world is now younger than them, besides a select few. What does that do to a generation of people when the entire generation who raised them is gone? Perhaps the gradual nature of aging prepares us for it, but the subconscious doesn't let these people go. The next generation to pass will be the baby boomers, a generation that grew up in the 50s and 60s and who came of age in the 70s and 80s. When they pass, the world will be left with Gen X and Gen Y alone at the top, presiding over a world born after the dawn of the internet. The relics and culture of the 20th century will only reside in things, movies, music. First-hand accounts will only exist in interviews and documentaries. Everyone who lived in the hippie era will only see a preview of the future. Much like the dreams of the baby boomers, Gen X and Y's subconscious will continue to recall and mourn the disappearance of the generation that raised them. The generation of parents that bought them their first Nintendos, BMX bikes, and trampolines. The generation who bridged the gap between harder times that valued saving and the desire to provide their children of the 70s and 80s driven by the new economy of modern consumerism. How will this affect those of us born in the 1970s and after when the baby boomers are gone? Will we recognize the world from the one we grew up in? 20 years from now, we'll no doubt look back at the first 20 years of this century as that special time when the Greatest Generation was still around. Our parents were still young enough for backyard football games, and we were coming of age. It makes me want to freeze time and appreciate every moment I have with the boomers who raised us, even if a deliberate recognition of the moment won't alleviate the melancholy that will be sure to come in the future. For sadly, it's part of every person's experience to deal with the subconscious mourning of losing the generation who raised them.